Welcome to the program, and thank you for joining us. And I say us because in addition to me, you will be hearing from Dr. Julie Miller, who is joining me to talk about, she's a fellow writing coach and then some, and I'll have her introduce herself in just a minute, but both of us wanted to talk a little bit about writing, the skills involved in writing, the practices, some of the real key things to keep in mind when people try to write. It's such an exacting duty to have to write something. It intimidates so many people, but there are things that we can do that lighten the load, that make us more skillful at it. So, Julie, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience before we start our conversation in earnest?
Very good. Well, Mike, we're talking about my favorite subject, and I am the founder and president of Business Writing That Counts. And for the last 30 years, we've been helping clients improve their bottom line by eliminating bad writing. And we have worked with over 750,000 people in that time, helping professionals improve their writing so that they can get the promotion they want, the proposal they want signed, the job they want, everything to help people really reach their potential by being able to write well. And I think well is a word that we can intimidate people with, like you said, Mike, that I think the point is to get across in a clear way, in an organized manner, what it is we're trying to say so that we can get the results we want.
Yeah, clear thinking equals clear writing. But there's an awful lot of people. It's so interesting that I hear people are so articulate. They speak so well, but then it doesn't translate to the written word for them. And if you stop and think about it today, more people than ever are reading and writing because of social media. And I see some very thoughtfully written stuff on social media, and then I see some pretty dreadfully written stuff.
Yeah, pretty dreadful. Yeah.
Well, let's start with one of the basics. What do you, I'll throw in your court, Julie.
Sure.
What is one of the basics that a person, when they're sitting down to write, needs to keep firmly in mind?
The very first thing is remember the reader. It's all about the reader. It isn't about you. It's really what the reader's heartaches, headaches, stomach aches, and what you can do to help them. And I have a story that I like to tell that illustrates this so beautifully. And so this was a construction company that had been asked to go to the East Coast to meet with the owners over there and bid on a big, huge project. And, of course, they had the expertise. So when the owners called the construction company, they said, we have already vetted you. We think you're the perfect fit for what we want to have accomplished. And would you fly out and meet us? Okay, they get buffed and puffed and suited and tied, and they fly out there. They have the meeting. Notes are taken. They say, okay, go forth, write the proposal. Write the proposal. 1 week, 2 weeks pass, nothing. The senior engineer calls up the company and says, hey, did you get our proposal? Oh, yes, we got it. Well, were we awarded the contract? Oh, no. And he's going, what are you talking about? You said we were the best fit. And the guy said, you did not listen to what our concerns were, which were water and traffic and the time frame. You just talked about how wonderful you were. So we awarded it to someone who really addressed our concerns. And that was an enormous loss, millions and millions of dollars for this construction company, because they did not pay attention to who the reader is and what they need.
And it shows the stakes that can, at times, the stakes can be huge. So it's something we really need to pay attention to. And
absolutely.
I'll throw one of my own stories in.
Yeah.
That falls into line with this. One of the success stories from my past was when I was with American City Business Journals. The CEO of the company had asked me, why don't you write, we were talking about a initiative that was on the table, and he wanted me to write a letter, an email, to all the editors and the publishers in the company, just a group email out to them, and told me basically what he wanted me to communicate. Well, he would write often, and he had a very particular writing style. And what I did is I did my best to channel his name was Ray.
His voice,
and
yeah. Right.
I wanted to channel his voice. I knew what his word choice was. I knew how he would construct sentences. And when I ended up writing this and sending it out, and of course CCing him, he wrote back to me and said, Mike, that was just about perfect. And I was thinking to myself, well, of course it was, Ray, because that was you really writing. I was channeling you.
Right.
I wouldn't have written it that way, but I know, I knew. The thing is, and everybody knew what the CEO sounded like in writing. So when I wrote that way, it was something that was very comfortable to them. And it was something that certainly was comfortable to him, because that's pretty much the way he would have written it. But you make the point that about understanding the audience, and certainly if we're writing for a group of senior citizens, think about the kind of phrasing or colloquialisms you would use versus a group of millennials or a group of Generation Z.
Well, exactly.
It's really critical to understand that audience, or we don't connect.
We don't connect. And, the perfect example has been, and I'm sure you've talked to business owners, is leaders who have sent out very factual emails when this first shelter at home happened, and just saying, all right, go home, do this, and completely missed, and he really got slammed for it, the fact that people were suffering. There was no empathy in this email to people. There was no, I feel your pain, we're here to help. It was all, these are the facts, go home and wear a mask, right? And so again, real damage can be done, and he is on damage control now, is how to win back people where he had been so uncompassionate for his audience. So it can really get you. So
it really can. And one of the other things I wanted to bring up, I'm switching subjects now.
Sure.
One of the mistakes I think that some people make when they're consulting with writers who are, say, amateur writers or people who aren't that particularly skilled at writing is keep your sentences short. And I would say, by and large, that's the truth. Go ahead and keep your sentences short. But if you're ever going to get good at writing, if you're ever going to be able to speed up the writing, modulate the writing, create rhythm, don't be afraid of the mid-length or long sentences, because those are also essential to creating the kind of rhythm that keeps a reader engaged.
Interested.
Because a series of nothing but short sentences, it really slows the writing down, and it has kind of this staccato effect, which a staccato effect is something that you want to use in your writing at times, but as an effect, not the entire beginning to end piece of writing running at a very slow pace, because every sentence is very clipped.
Right. I have a quick example of that in my book, which is the same name, Business Writing That Counts, and it makes your point exactly. This is from an ad. It says, sounds great, doesn't it? Well, it gets even better. So here are these two short sentences, then long. You can sign up for call forwarding from blah, 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 and get 1 month free. So two shorts and a long, and it's very, very powerful. So you're absolutely right about that. But I wanted to come back to a point you made earlier, because I sometimes have people say to me, oh, gosh, I have to write for my boss, and I don't know what to do. Well, you did it perfectly, Mike. You mimicked his style, his choice of words, how his sentences were framed up, by just kind of studying it before you went at the writing. So bravo to you.
Yeah, it's actually a very good technique, and anybody can do it. That's the thing. Anybody can do it. You can take a piece of writing and you can emulate it. Just simply emulate it, and that's nothing but more than or nothing less than flattery for your boss.
Well, I often tell, let me just make one point about the writing. What I usually tell people is keep it to 20 words. Your sentences, try to gauge them to that level. Maybe go to 24, but 20 or less is easy for people, kind of bite-sized information. So that would be my tip.
Yeah, and if you're interested in long sentences, if you're interested in improving your skills, there are writing coaches out there, myself among them,
yes,
Dr.
of course,
Miller
yes.
among them, who can coach in this, because it really has to do, people avoid the long sentences because they think people will get lost in them. Well, a well-constructed sentence, people don't get lost in it.
No, they don't.
You know when to cut it off. You know how to construct it. You know when to stop. Too many long sentences is not good. Too many short sentences. So, point made. Correct. One of the other much simpler matters, though, that's a little bit more advanced, but one of the very simple matters that people can deal with, Julie, is writing in active versus passive voice.
You're singing my song, Mike. Singing my song. Yes, very much so. And one of the tricks there is to get rid of the word there, T-H-E-R-E, as in over there. So for direction, it's fine. But I find if people start their sentences where there are many discounts available for this product, there are many reports that we have to get out, that you force yourself into passive voice. So if you just get rid of there, it will clean up your writing, and you have to come up with another verb other than is, are, am, was, were, being, been, right?
Mm-hmm, exactly. And that's another one of those simple fixes that people can make. It's not difficult to figure out how to put the voice, go from passive to an active voice. It gives the writing more energy, and it moves it along. And one of the other things that I would also just throw in there is eliminate as many adverbs as you can, because an adverb usually means that you've got a weak verb that you're trying to support. And what the real challenge there is, pick a better verb so that you don't need the support of an adverb. You don't have to eliminate all adverbs, but the idea is don't just besot your writing with adverbs, because it ends up creating a lot of extra verbiage that's not necessary, and it will start to deplete. Reading can be a difficult task. It takes a lot of energy to read, because writing is hieroglyphics. We're interpreting all these symbols on a page or on a screen. So we want to make sure that we're not bogging people down. And adverbs and passive voice are two of the ways that we do that. I want to go back to something I said at the beginning and talk about that a little bit. And that was that, clear, organized thinking begets clear, organized writing. But a lot of times I don't think people even take the time to organize the writing. They sit down, they start to write, knowing that there's certain things they want to say, but doesn't it make a lot of sense to go ahead and just scribble out a little outline just to organize things?
Yes. Well, I'm in favor of idea mapping, which is my shortened version of mind mapping, a very short way to get to the essence of what you're going to write. Because, when people say, I always do a formal outline. I said, Roman numeral 1, capital A. Oh, yes. I said, well, let me know how that goes for you, because I've never met anyone who does a formal outline that doesn't start over, because what was A is now B, what was B is now C. But you're right, some way to jot down your approach. And idea mapping is a graphic organizer that can be used to get you there as well. And I think jotting down even in a linear way what the point you want to make, and I think asking the question, it's either, what is the problem, or what are the issues that I'm trying to solve for this client, or what are the major points I want to make in this letter, this email, this white paper, this proposal, whatever it is. What is it? What is it? What is it? What do I want to have happen when the reader gets the message? What do you want people to do? So it comes back to that same, all of the things you've talked, Mike, about eliminating adverbs. I totally agree with you. It's an excellent idea, and trying to get it organized. And I would also say reading your writing out loud is the way to go, because you will hear how you sound, so that you avoid kind of that staccato of very sharp sentences that don't flow.
Well, and then you will find, my experience is that when I read my copy out loud, there's things I stumble over, and then I realize I can reword this so it flows. The tongue of thought what I call the tongue of thought, reading internally.
Oh, I love that phrase. That's wonderful.
Well, I mean, if we can read our copy out loud and it flows smoothly and we're not tripping over it, it will read like silk internally with the tongue
Correct.
of thought.
Correct.
So it's a great piece of writing advice to read that copy out loud and find the rough patches, because they will reveal themselves very quickly if you're reading out loud. One of the other points I know that you make, Julie, is the use of readability statistics. Why don't you elaborate on that a little bit?
Love them, love them, love them. It's the only way to go. And especially I find with technical writers who get the grade level up to 17.7 and can't understand why the senior team can't understand the report. This happens over and over again because, first of all, I find technical people do not like to buy a period. They love commas and semicolons, and some of those sentences are 60, 70 words long, right? That's not going to work. But readability statistics, you can Google it for all your listeners, and then have it operationalized in Word, and you can also have it in Outlook. But it does give you what grade you should be writing at and what is the readability ease. In other words, how easy is it for people to read your writing? And I think, now tell me what you think, Mike, I usually tell people between about 8th and 9th grade is what they should be aiming for.
I have to be honest with you, I never really tag it to a particular grade level. But I will say that what you're pointing to is that we have more tools available to us today as writers and editors than ever. It's amazing the apps and the program that you're talking about, being able to Google and find different apps. Grammarly is one that I've had some experience with.
Oh yeah, it's a great.
It will help correct the copy, and then it will tell you how you performed with it. It's really quite effective. So there's many tools out there for us to use. Tools that try to put people like me and you out of business. But
can't do it.
No, they can't do it because there's such a thing called tone, which I know you're big on, Julie.
Yes.
And how, you can't really use artificial intelligence, certainly not at this point, to achieve nuance and tone and whatnot. Talk about tone a little bit. What are some of the messages that you give to your students
one of the
about
things,
tone?
the one big thing I tell people is eliminate the word should, unless you should run out of the building because it's burning. Because should, to most people, kind of gets their hackles up right away. Unless it's a legal terminology, you really have to watch that. And a lot of negatives, don't, won't, couldn't, can't, whatever kinds of framing up will get people going. But actually, I have a little tip card or tip sheet that I'd be happy to send to people that discusses the formula behind the 3 most common tones, which are assertive tones, personal tones, and neutral tones. All 3, which are very appropriate in the workplace, but there's a specific formula of words and sentence length and active versus passive voice that you use to achieve that it is planned. It isn't just a condescending approach to something.
Exactly. Yet another tool, yet another writing tool. And I should point out to our listeners that you'll notice the title cards, the slide that is right in front of you. You will see contact information for me and for Julie Miller. So if you want to reach out to either or both of us, you'll see there's an email address and a phone number. And feel free to contact Dr. Miller about the card that she was just talking about, or either one of us about any of these points that we've been making. And I'm going to ask you, Julie, whether assuming you'll indulge me.
Sure.
I think it would be a good thing for us to get maybe back on the phone next month and talk about why people have so much difficulty with writing, how we're taught early in life the wrong way.
Totally the wrong way. Yes, I would love to talk about that because, Mike, what you said in your introduction I think is so valid, and I think people really need to hear it. And you stated it so well, and that really writing is your reputation. How you present yourself with the written word. People do, whether it's, as you said, a sloppy post or whatever, or an email that where a person did not take the care they need to, that really can set them up or have them not succeed as they would wish because of that. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember, before we talked a couple of weeks ago, and I was saying that there's been so many instances where I've worked with people who I thought they were very intelligent, and I'm sure they are intelligent. Right. They speak well, they organize well, they do everything well, and then all of a sudden, weeks, months later, you see a piece of writing from them, and it's like, wow, there's that missing piece.
Exactly.
And it's critical. It's critical. The example you gave earlier about losing a multi-million-dollar deal because they weren't listening, they did not target it they weren't thinking about their audience and targeting it properly. It's a big deal, and anytime we are looking for employment, there's always a writing component. And boy, I've never paid as much attention to the resume as I did the cover letter. The cover letter is what spoke to me.
Yes, exactly.
I wanted to hear if this person knew how to communicate and could organize thoughts. And if that wasn't the case, then, especially in the business that I'm in, and publishing and journalism, it's that was a non-starter right there. But let's get together again next month and talk about why people are so intimidated by writing, how we are properly taught writing, and how we're not properly taught writing early in life by so many bad English teachers.
I know it. This is a wonderful topic to discuss, and I'm happy to join you next month for further discussions about it.